What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, live for a different video at this time of the year. Typically, I'm not ranking teams, tier ranking teams at this time of the year, but there's just been this incredible storyline that is formulated throughout NFL free agency this first week of NFL free agency. You could call this period like the second stage of NFL free agency for 2022. And the way that I look at it, everybody wants to know who the best teams in the AFC are. And in this video, I'm going to rank the AFC teams. I'm not only going to put them in order for you, but I'm also going to put them into different tiers that I feel differentiate the teams in this loaded AFC. And just looking at it, I know this is going to be really difficult because this is one of the best conferences entering a season that I've ever seen. So before I get started, guys, before I break down all these teams, their moves, mixing in my thoughts with what I feel they're going to be in 2022, don't forget to Gronk, Spike, the like button, and also Gronk, Spike, that notification bell for the latest upload and to be notified when I go live just like this. I do want to give a quick shout out to all the BLVers out there, all the BLV members of the YouTube channel. I appreciate all you guys that are supporting me on that level. Lots of love for you guys and lots of love for all the subscribers, the consistent viewers, everybody that's in the comments. Just a quick shout out to you guys for the constant support and really appreciate it. You guys don't understand, this is really a big deal. So thank you so much for the constant support throughout NFL free agency. It's been a lot of fun to break down these signings. It wouldn't be fun if I was just talking to myself, so I appreciate everybody that's watching these videos and Gronk Spike and the like button. If we do get 100 likes on this video, I will do the NFC as well. This was more just an idea to break down the AFC because it's so uniquely stacked, but the NFC, if we get 100 likes, I will do the NFC as well. You can also follow me on social media as well as the channel on social media at TheBottomLineView on Instagram. And you can follow me on Twitter at Mitch Milani. And as well, we have a TikTok, same name as the channel, TheBottomLineView. Links are all in the description for all that sort of stuff. So go check it out, guys. Thanks to everybody in the chat. What's up? Let's say some hellos. Jeremy, Isaac, Monty. Oh, we got a new guy. Is this a new guy? Sean? I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce your name, but I appreciate it. Sports Today. What's up? Sports Today. He's a long-time Sports Today. Jeremy, Wave God. What's going on, bro? Basketball and football moments. Thank you for joining. Sports Today says free agency this year has been crazy. Yes, sir. Jin says, hey, Mitch. What's up, Jin? Nice to see you in the chat. We've also got Nicholas Gill who says Mitch Milani is back. Yes, of course. Nunya Biz, what's up, man? Indigo, thank you for joining. All right, let's get to these tier rankings. Let's waste no more time. Gronk, spike the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's break it down. All right, so you should be able to see everything. My screen should be full up of tier rankings. So as you guys know, obviously by the title, I'm only doing the AFC. There are NFC teams on the screen, but I'm only doing the AFC. What's up, Doopy Guy? What's up, Right? How you doing? Okay. Maybe, Isaac. I'll consider it. All right. Let's start with the Indianapolis Colts. I'm just going to go in order here. So the tiers are as follows. Favorites are the best teams in the NFL, the best teams in the AFC, and the teams that I feel have a chance to win the Super Bowl and widely considered the best teams in the AFC. But this is just my opinion, so you guys know that. This has nothing to do with Vegas odds, nothing to do with what Monty may think, or what Odd Big King may think, or what Wave God even may think. It's just about what I think. Okay, it's just my opinion. The playoffs are the second tier teams, the teams that I feel pretty securely are going to be competitive, good football teams that are more than likely going to make it to the playoffs. Then we've got in the hunt, which are the teams that They're not quite playoff teams, playoff quality in my opinion, but they're competitive, and they're teams that can kind of beat anybody, but they can also lose to anybody. They've got quality aspects to them, and they're strong in areas, but they're not perfect. Below average are the teams that I just don't think are great and probably don't have a chance of making the playoffs, but they're not the absolute worst, if that makes sense. So they're not a team that's going to be picking in the top 5 in the draft, but they're not going to be a team that makes the playoffs. And then the worst is a team or teams that just absolutely are terrible. Now, in the AFC, there are not many of those teams. So, let's begin with the Colts. The Colts. And then at the end, I'll be shifting it in order from how I feel about every team from 1 to 16, 16 to 1. Okay, the Colts. They don't have a quarterback right now. My assumption with the Colts is that they're going to end up with a quarterback at some point in time, whether that is Baker Mayfield or Jimmy Garoppolo. Feels like it's more likely to be Baker Mayfield at this point in time. Jimmy might have sailed, might have passed at this point in time for him to be the quarterback. It almost feels like Jimmy Garoppolo might be the 49ers quarterback next year, which might be a little bit surprising to some people, but yeah, that might happen. Now, the Colts, I do like their roster. I think it's fairly solid. I like the addition of Yannick Ngakoue in the front 7. They've done a good job of retaining the players that they've wanted to retain, especially on the defensive line. And linebacker level is solid. Safeties, pretty good. Corners, okay. Like, they're pretty much the same team they were last year from a roster perspective. Offensively, they still got to solve their offensive line because they're still missing a left tackle, in my opinion, unless they play Pryor there, which is possible. Right guard, I believe, is a position that they've got to fulfill because Mark Lewinsky left, and that was a player that he's solid, right? He's a consistent starter. He's nothing special, but he was at least average for them at that spot, so they're going to have to replace that production. But they've got a couple elite players on their offensive line, including Quentin Nelson. Kelly has the capability of being elite, wasn't last year, and right tackle Braden Smith is very good. And then tight end Ali Cox, I believe, re-signed. Wide receiver, they've still got to work on that. So the Colts, with all this money that they have, they haven't been able to make any substantial moves. The only move they've really made is Yannick Ngakoue of any sort of substance, at least from what I can remember. So I think that they're probably a below average to in the hunt team, and I'm going to put them in the hunt. The reason I'm going to put them in the hunt is because I'm not quite sure on the quarterback. I'm assuming it's Baker Mayfield. So assuming it's Baker Mayfield, they are a team that could win their division, but could also be an average football team. I like aspects to them. I think they have a strong D-line, a strong running game, a good coach, and I like a few of their players, but I don't think their roster's over the top. I don't think they're going to dominate by any means, and I don't think they're a lock for the playoffs due to their inconsistency that we might see from their quarterback and due to the competitiveness of this conference. So their AFC South does help, though, because that is a weak division. Next team is the Texans. This one's obvious. They are the worst team in the AFC and the worst team maybe in the NFL, probably in the NFL. I don't think I'd put anybody below them. Davis Mills is going to be their quarterback. Lovie Smith is their head coach. Lovie Smith hasn't had a ton of success as a head coach recently, and I thought he did an okay job with the defense last year. It's a pretty simple defense, but he'll allow them to play fast and hard, and I'm sure the players will play hard for him. He's a coach that's had success in the NFL and has a command, so I believe they'll play hard for him. But they just don't have a lot of talent. You know, the D-line, I do think that their D-line and their front 7 is sneaky, kind of not that bad. When you look at the rest of their makeup and the rest of their depth chart, there are certainly weaknesses. I mean, obviously, they're not very good in certain areas. But I think their front 7 is actually an area that could surprise some people. I'll put it that way. Their secondary is definitely very weak. I do like Thomas and King at the corner positions, but their safeties, losing Justin Reed is a substantial loss. And then offensively, offensive line is average at best. They've worked on Tunsil's contract, so it appears he'll be there. Brandon Cooks is still there as their primary playmaker, but they don't have a ton of playmakers behind him, and he could be on the move potentially. Running backs filled with a bunch of ancient players, including Rex Burkhead, who I love, but he's pretty old at this point. And Davis Mills is their quarterback. He's probably the worst starting quarterback, or he's one of them. And I thought he played admirably last year. So the Texans is the worst team in the NFL, but I'm rooting for them to get better, and I'm rooting for them to see what they do with these picks to get more talent on their roster. All right, the Baltimore Ravens are next. This team's really interesting. I would definitely be higher on them if Zadarius Smith officially signed with them, but the case of the matter is that he did not officially sign with the Baltimore Ravens, so that sucks, but they definitely have improved in the offensive line. I think they've finally fulfilled that offensive line. Getting Morgan Moses at right tackle is a huge addition for them. I think that their receiving core is underrated when you account for Rashad Bateman, who I think is going to have a big year this year as a second-year player. Mark Andrews, who had the most productive season of any tight end last year. And Marquise Brown, who's got some speed, and I thought had his best season of his career last year. You get your running backs back. So I think that the Ravens offense with Lamar at the helm is actually going to be a lot more difficult to stop than people think. Their defense, I'm intrigued to see the coaching. Losing Don Martindale, it's going to change the scheme. I think they're going to be more coverage-oriented, less pass rush, and less blitz-oriented, less aggressive. And I think they might shift towards more zone in their defensive philosophy. Bringing in Marcus Williams, I think, was a very nice signing for the back end. I do think they need some work in the front, especially. That's why I think Zadarius Smith not getting him there was such a miss. But I do feel like Michael Pierce is a nice addition. We know how he performs in their defense. He's a big run stuffer. I think that they're pretty securely a playoff team. You could argue that they're a favorite, I think, but I'm going to put them in a playoffs scenario here. I think they're underrated by most NFL fans, and I think that is mostly because people underrate Lamar Jackson, but I do like their secondary. I just wish they were more dynamic in their front seven, and I wish that they were more dynamic in terms of their passing game consistently and their offensive philosophy passing-wise. Like, a lot of their scheme from a passing perspective is pretty vanilla and can definitely be attacked by a defense. So I like the Ravens. I always respect the Ravens. I think they're only going to get better throughout the rest of the offseason, so they could certainly move up. I don't see them moving down. They're in a tough division, but they're well-rounded, well-coached, and always have good special teams and have an elite quarterback. So all those things are there for the Ravens. The Buffalo Bills are next. I've got the Buffalo Bills as the favorite in this conference. And the reason is they've got the best quarterback, in my opinion, in this conference. I think Josh Allen is absolutely absurd, and he's so good at football. It's ridiculous. He's a specimen. He's an unstoppable force, and really, I don't see many teams slowing him down. You've got an offensive line that I think got better. Adding Roger Saffold to the mix, I think, is a very reliable veteran guard who can help the running game and help the overall offensive line, especially from a veteran standpoint. And then tight end, you add O.J. Howard as a layered depth there underneath Dawson Knox. I don't love O.J. Howard at this point, but at least he gives you a second option at that position. Wide receiver, you lose Cole Beasley, you let him go. I don't think that's going to be a significant loss. I think Cole Beasley definitely massively declined last year. I see their receiving core as Stephon Diggs, as Gabe Davis. Isaiah McKenzie might take on a bigger role. They might even attack it in the draft. I don't think they're done at that position. I love their approach this offseason. They're being more aggressive. I like how they brought back a couple players on their defensive line. Jordan Phillips being one of them. Shaq Lawson being another one of them. You add Von Miller, which is the big-time edge player that they needed. I've been saying this for years. They need that difference maker on the D-line. They finally have it. I think Oliver has showed an increase in ability every single year, so he should only get better. Linebackers are good. Milano's still underrated. Secondary is solid. Tre'Davious White back, massive. That game doesn't go to overtime, let's just say, if you have Tre'Davious White versus the Chiefs. Safeties are still good, although they're getting older, so they might decline at some point, and depth might be needed. But I think the Bills are the best team in the AFC at this moment in time, because I just really like what they've done in adding, specifically, Von Miller and Roger Saffold. Those are the two moves that I think are the difference for me between last year and this year. And plus, they have Josh Allen. The Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are, I would say, in the hunt. Oh, do I want to say they're in the hunt? I mean, okay, I'm going to put them back. This is the weird thing about the Miami Dolphins. Off the top of my head, they're in the hunt. Okay? But I could make a case that they might take a step back this year. And even though they've gotten more, they've gotten more talent. Like, they have improved their talent, right? I think that their offensive line is better. I think that they added some weapons. I think that they defensively will still be good. I'm not sure how the impact of Mike McDaniel to Brian Flores, like that difference, I'm not sure how that's going to take place. And I'm not sure how Tua is going to play in his third season. I'm not sure if he's going to be better or if he's actually going to be worse. And why I say that is, I'm not sure how film on him is going to impact him as a player. A lot of people are going to look at this as hatred. No, that's not the case. What I'm saying is, because he is a limited player, I do wonder how defenses are going to try to stop him as a player, right? And I wonder how that is going to impact this offense. But I will say this. I like what they've done in the offseason. I think their offensive line has improved. I like their running back choices with Raheem Mostert and Chase Edmonds. Like that a lot. I like Cedric Wilson, but don't love Cedric Wilson, but he helps them. I'm not sure what they're going to get out of Devontae Parker, but he's there. Obviously, I really like Jalen Waddle. I think he's special. Defensively, I think their front seven is underrated. I think their secondary is pretty darn good. So most of their makeup is really good. But their biggest questions to me are at the two biggest areas of their team. And that's coaching and that's quarterback. So that's why I put them in the hunt. Because like the Colts, they have major questions, but they also have a lot of things that I can say I like about them. So that's why I put Miami in the hunt officially. The Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are going to go to the playoffs. What's going on, everybody? Just join in the chat. By the way, appreciate everybody. If you haven't already, make sure you do Gronk Spike the like button. As I said, if we get to 100 likes, NFC will be next. If we don't, you're not getting the NFC. So make sure you get to 100 likes. Thank you guys for watching. All right, so the Denver Broncos are the playoffs right now. I might have to remove teams, right? I might have to remove teams. I haven't previously figured this out. This is me on the move, okay? So, the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson, when he plays on a half-decent football team, he wins 9 games. Russell Wilson has never had a losing season where he played all 16 games. Just think about that for a second. And people don't realize that a lot of his teams in Seattle sucked. Sucked. Like, they sucked, okay? They had good players, but some of them were not good. I'm just going to say that much. But the Denver Broncos, I like Russell Wilson, obviously. He's an elite player. Offensive line, I think, is slept on a tad bit. I think it's better than people realize. I'd like them to get a right tackle. Maybe that comes in the draft. I'm not sure. Their running game, Javonte Williams might be the biggest breakout running back of the next year. I think he looked unbelievable in his rookie year in the limited size that we saw him. I think he's going to be really, really good. They could add some depth to that position, though. That might come through the draft as well. Wide receiver, I do think this is an area where they're overrated. I like their wide receivers. I don't love their wide receivers. I think Jerry Jeudy might have his best season ever because I think he's going to have the best quarterback he's ever had and more consistency. I like Jeudy a lot. I think he's a great route runner. He's better in the short intermediate areas. I don't think he's a game breaker necessarily, but he's very good. Courtland Sutton is a nice downfield option, but he's not like, in my opinion, elite number one option. I think they lack an elite number one. I think they have two guys that are close to being number ones and maybe in the number one conversation, but they're not true number, like go-to guys, like top 15, top 20 receivers. And then Tim Patrick is super underrated. KJ Hamler has some speed. Like, I like the top four, but I don't love them necessarily. Defensively, the defensive line is solid. It's not fantastic. I think that losing Shelby Harris will hurt, but I don't necessarily think it will be a massive loss. Front, like their edge position, Gregory and Chubb could be dynamic, but Gregory is also kind of a questionable guy. You know, he could be come and go a little bit. Appreciate the super chats. Just 1 sec after I finish the Broncos, I'll get to them. I promise. Linebackers, not sure what they're doing there yet. Safeties, Kareem Jackson's got to be signed, or they've got to figure that out. Cornerback, they've got to figure that out. People don't realize that they're losing pieces at the secondary spots. They've got nice foundation with Simmons and Surtain and even Darby. Like, that's solid, but it's not what it was last year. And Fangio not being there is certainly going to hurt. I have questions about the coach, even though I like him as a guy and he feels like he could be good. I just don't know with Hackett. So Russell Wilson's the biggest reason, but I like a lot of their talent. They've got a very nice roster. I don't think it's as good maybe as people make it out to be. It might be a tad overrated. I don't think this roster is like what I thought it might be last year. I think maybe I got a little bit ahead of myself, or I misevaluated a few areas of their team. And I do think their defense going into last year was much stronger than it will be going into this year, if that makes sense. Jake Hedge, $5. Appreciate it. Says, keep killing it. Sending the love and support. Thank you so much, Jake. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for the super chat. Next up, we've got Jake again with the $10. Man, let's go, Jake. Let's go, he says. Let's go, Mitch. Perfect timing. Broncos winning in the playoffs. Let's go, Broncos. Our defense will be good too, but we stacked. Thank you, Jake. Appreciate the super chats, man. And if anybody else wants the super chat, don't forget it. He says, we got Chubb and some solid guys. Don't give me doubt, Mitch. Okay, this is what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying that the defense is not as good as it was entering last year. But their offense is going to be much, 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 much better. And in combination with the loss of coaching and Vic Fangio, of course, you had Von Miller, you had Shelby Harris, you had Kareem Jackson, you had Bryce Callahan, you had Ronald Darby, you had Kyle Fuller. On paper, that defense might have been the best defense in the NFL. You had Johnson in the middle. And you lost some of those pieces throughout the year, but that's not this depth chart this year. So Broncos fans, just understand where I'm coming from. The Cleveland Browns are next. Deshaun Watson is next. Everybody wants to know, how good are the Browns going to be with Deshaun Watson? How good are they going to be with Deshaun Watson? Okay, so when you look at it, you've got to consider this. Deshaun Watson's probably going to be suspended, right? So I don't know if this is actually an indication of how well they're going to do throughout the year, because Deshaun Watson's going to be suspended. I'm not sure how long it's going to be for. They brought in Jacoby Brissett to back him up. How many games is Jacoby Brissett going to win with this football team? I don't know. Is he even going to be able to win 50% of them? How many games is that going to be? So it's really tough for me to say how good the Browns are. So I'm just going to, because everybody wants to just take a look at the Browns from when they have Deshaun Watson, how good are they going to be? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to try to account for the suspension, okay? But in my mind, I think the Browns are going to be in tough to make the playoffs this year with that suspension, because it's going to be difficult to stay above 500 with Jacoby Brissett, just in my opinion. And I love Jacoby Brissett, but he's just not a great starting quarterback. So you've got Deshaun Watson, and this offense, I think, like I've said, Watson's a great fit for Stefanski's offense because it limits some of the things that he doesn't do particularly well, which is consistent accuracy, like a drop back Tom Brady style, Drew Brees style quarterback, where the Texans somewhat forced him into that role at times. It makes him more of a playmaker and a big play player, and I think that Watson is going to benefit from that in his efficiency numbers and things of that nature. Now, you look at the offense, they're going to have a strong running game. They have a strong offensive line. They've got a good tight end in David Njoku, who might be underrated. They've got Amari Cooper, who is a number one receiver, but a tad unreliable in certain moments and times, and definitely needs a number two to benefit from. And they need to figure out the rest of that receiving depth chart, because the way that I look at it right now, their number two and number threes at this moment in time, Donovan Peoples-Jones and Grant, are not number twos and number threes, okay? It's just not. They're number threes and number fours. So they need to find a number two receiver. My guess might be through the draft, might be another free agent, a veteran on the way, potentially. But the offense will be good. I don't know if it'll be as good as people think, because Watson will not have the receiving weapons that he did have with the Texans, but the offensive line and the running game will be stronger, and Watson will be able to make enough plays in the passing game for them to be successful, and they'll definitely be more reliable than they were with Baker. Defensive, also, I think Kevin Stefanski as a play caller is good, but might be a little bit overrated. Defensively, they are good. They have a lot of talent. I don't think they're great. I think they can get better. I like their corner position quite a bit. I think they're missing a safety. Linebackers are strong. Defensive line, interior is missing a piece or two. But the edge is actually very promising. If they get Clowney back, I think they're better in that spot. Defense is close to a top half unit. I would say they're borderline top 12-ish type of unit. But their coaching isn't my favorite. I don't love Joe Woods as a defensive coordinator. I think they could use a better coach in that spot. I don't love his versatility and just his overall scheme. I think it's too vanilla, and I think they rely too much on the Seattle scheme of a way of going about it, and I prefer more versatility in my defense, and I don't think they offer that, but they do have a lot of speed and a lot of freak athletes, especially in the front seven. So I think the Browns are probably going to be, this is tough, they're not a favorite. They're not a favorite. Now, if I account for the suspension, I think they're going to be in the hunt. But if I don't account for the suspension, I think they're a playoff team. Like, if Deshaun Watson was playing all the games, I would say they're, without a doubt, a playoff team, right? But if Deshaun Watson is not playing all the games, I think they're in the hunt. I do. I do. And I need to see improvement from their receiving core. I need to see what Watson's going to look like. I need to see how the karma and the expectations that follow the Browns are going to impact the Browns. We've seen this organization many times affected by the expectations. And oftentimes they don't reach those expectations. But they still got the draft and the rest of the offseason to improve their roster. I like their roster, and if Watson was playing the whole year, I'd have them in the playoffs without a doubt. But because of the suspension, I'm going to put them in the hunt. Okay. The Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are a favorite still. Okay? A lot of people were probably expecting me to move them down because you guys know me. In the past, I've been a pretty big Chiefs deflector and denier, and I ended up being right. I just want to say that much. I was right. People, I was right, okay? But that Chief hatred, let's call it, to put it in a term, has died down because Mahomes pooped himself so bad in the AFC Championship that, it made up for it. So the Chiefs, this is why they're a favorite. They've got Andy Reid, who still, people forget that they have Andy Reid. Andy Reid is one of the greatest coaches of all time. He's not just a great coach. He's one of the greatest coaches of all time. I don't think people talk about that enough. Andy Reid is one of the greatest coaches of all time and has succeeded with a plethora of supporting casts, teams, quarterbacks, etc. Something that not even Bill Belichick has been able to achieve, right? So, you've got Andy Reid. You've got Patrick Mahomes, who is a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. And I didn't think played his best year last year. But I do look at Mahomes coming into this year, maybe a little bit more motivated this season to be better this year, the way that last year ended. The offensive line is young, strong, and growing. Their receiving core has gotten better. Juju is a good player. We might make fun of him. He's a good football player. I like what they have with Tyreek Hill, Juju, Travis Kelce, and Mecole Hardman. I like that a lot. The running backs kind of suck, but that doesn't really matter to me. So, what I just laid out for you, their offense is the reason they're a favorite. Their offense is completely intact. And the way I look at the Chiefs is their offense gives them a floor that is extremely high because they're going to be a top 3 offense in the NFL. Their play calling is too good. Their quarterback is too good. Tyreek Hill is too good. Travis Kelce is too good for them not to be a top 3 offense. Their defense, though, is their ceiling. Okay, so their offense is their floor. Their defense is their ceiling. Their defense sucks on paper. Their defensive line is very weak. Chris Jones is the only player I like, I think. I believe they re-signed Derek Nandi. They don't have Melvin Ingram as of yet. Like, he's not included here. He's a free agent. Their defensive line's weak. A lot of their guys are free agents. Their linebacking core, it's okay. It's not awful, I would say. They've got a couple of younger players, Bolton, Gay, etc. Pretty okay. Like, they're faster. They're more athletic than they were in the past. But they don't have the depth they used to have, I would say. Secondary, no more Honey Badger. They replaced him with Justin Reed. That's going to be a different look. They lost Charvarius Ward, who was their number 1 corner, guys. Number 1 corner on the team. Like, the perimeter corner that took on the best receiver on the other team is gone. He left. He's on the 49ers. Mike Hughes is still a free agent. I expect them to maybe re-sign him. He would be a nice addition to the secondary. I think Fenton is underrated. He's pretty good. Snead is good. But they don't have that Charvarius Ward element. Tyrann Mathieu is a big leader for them. And that defense is just missing a lot of the puzzle pieces. So they're not like one of the top favorites because of the defense, but their offense puts them in that category, if that makes sense. So the Chiefs are a favorite. The Titans. The Titans are currently a playoff team for me. And the reason is they're in a very weak AFC South. They have a solid quarterback who I've seen win in the NFL and make plays in the NFL with Ryan Tannehill. Mike Vrabel last year secured that he is an elite coach. He is a very good coach. Every year of his career, I believe he has a winning record or at least a 500 record. And he has a swagger and a confidence about him that I think really comes through with his football team. I love A.J. Brown. I think he is one of the most underappreciated receivers in the NFL. Derrick Henry's a stud, but I'm not sure if he'll start declining this year given the amount of workload he's had and given the amount of like the age and the injuries. But I like the addition of Austin Hooper, underrated ad, and I like the addition of Robert Woods, who wasn't a steal, guys, in the trade, but is going to be a great addition for the Titans as a intermediate, short, middle of the field wide receiver. So I like their receiving core more than I did last year because I think Robert Woods is actually better than Julio because I don't think Julio ever consistently gave any sort of substance to their offense because he was hurt a lot, and when he played, it was just not there. And then Austin Hooper's a better tight end than they had last year. So the Titans offensively should be just as good, if not better, second year with the OC that took over for Arthur Smith. And then defensively, although I don't really love, I believe it's Todd Downing. I did not like his playoff game, but we'll see how that develops. Defensively, they're okay. I mean, they've got some young elements to their secondary that could improve and therefore have a ceiling there where they break through and they get better, but I don't know if I can project that necessarily. The front seven linebackers, I still got to see if what they're going to do at that position. The defensive line is intact. I'm not sure you're ever going to get as good of a season as you did last year in Danico Autry, but he's there still. And then, of course, you've got Simmons, who's a stud, and you've got Harold Landry, who's a stud. He's back. So I think their defense is about the same as it was last year. There's not so much of a difference there, or at least the way that I look at it. But yeah, I think their team is about the same. I just think they're going to not get the number one seed. They're going to face tougher competition across the board, and we'll see how they deal with that. But I do think they're going to get less bad luck in terms of some of the big injuries that they saw a year ago, which should even everything out. So they're a playoff team and the favorite for the AFC South because the Colts currently don't have a quarterback. Let's get to the super chat that Jake left. Jake with the $5. AFC West is sacked for sure. We will see if Mahomes can handle the pressure in the media and from our new teams there. Broncos offense coming for you. I do believe Mahomes will be able to handle that pressure. I don't see it being too big for him at all. You know, the Chiefs might get rattled every once in a while from a loss or two, but they should be perfectly fine. They've seen plenty of these big games, and they have plenty of experience. So they're the team that you can rely on for sure. The Chargers are next. The Chargers are a team that I think many of us have a crush on at this moment in time, and I think that is totally warranted. The Chargers are a favorite. They have Justin Herbert, who absolutely unbelievable talent, arm strength, accuracy, size, mobility, ability to just fight through adversity and contact, constantly getting hit, making throws. Everything about Herbert is a franchise quarterback. Every single thing. He is phenomenal. So he's a top 5 quarterback to me. And then you've got Austin Eckler, dynamic running back. I'm intrigued to see what they do with the backups there because Eckler is a liability to get hurt every once in a while because of his size. Offensive line, I think, is going to be better than last year. It's not really improved from a additional standpoint, but I love the left tackle. I think Filer's solid. I think Lindsley's very good. And I think they're going to improve that right side. I believe they released Brian Bulaga. I don't think I'm wrong about that, but I do think they have a plan for fixing that, especially in the draft. Because they've addressed so much of their defense through free agency, I think a big priority for their draft is offensive line and offense. And then defensively, I really love what they've done. I mean, to me, they get arguably the best corner in the NFL, and I'll continue to say that until people shut me up. J.C. Jackson can do it all. Man, zone, ball skills. He's only like 25, 26 years old. He's got swagger, and that's going to just upgrade their entire defensive backfield because he's going to be a true number one for them that they can utilize to help everybody around them. Derwin James is the same way. Like, Derwin James is a one-man take away whoever he's covering. Like, he even kind of shadows Travis Kelce at times and does a very admirable job. So you've got two pieces there that are extremely, extremely good football players. And Asante Samuel Jr. is a very talented football player that really showed out in his rookie year. I think he's going to be great. Michael Davis is solid as well. So that secondary is strong. Nasir Adderley, same thing. I think he is underrated. So they've got at their core pieces and their starters are very good. Linebackers, I mean, not phenomenal, but if you were to be weak in one area of your defense, I don't mind having athletic, but maybe not great linebackers. That's kind of similar to the Rams and what Staley had with the Rams, so I'm not too worried about that. But the defensive line, I mean, they got so much better. Khalil Mack is still amazing, especially as a run defender, but also as a pass rusher and just creating havoc, complimenting Joey Bosa, who's a top 5 edge rusher in his own right. And then you've got Sebastian Joseph Day, who's a really good run defender. I just love what they've done to their defense, and their defense, without a doubt, to me, is going to be a top 5 unit this year. I think they've got that much talent. They've got good coaching, smart coaching, and they have reliably fixed their biggest holes. So I think the Chargers are going to be a phenomenal football team, and I think they are the favorite to win the AFC West. So I'm going to put them above the Chiefs there. That's my first ranking swap, but we're going to get to that at the end. The Steelers are somewhere in the below average in the hunt scenario. I believe they're definitely not the worst. And this is the weird thing about the Steelers. I'm going to put them in below average, okay? The Steelers have had a good offseason. Like, I actually think the Steelers have had a good offseason, but they just don't stack up with all the other great teams. They don't stack up with all the other great teams in this AFC. They just don't. I mean, they have a talented defense with Hayward and TJ Watt, and adding Miles Jack was nice, and Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think their defense under Mike Tomlin and Brian Flores and company is still going to be very strong, and it's going to be competitive. There's no doubt. And their offensive line is better. Like, James Daniels, awesome signing. Like, they made some nice moves. I think Trubisky was a nice move for the money. And they've got nice receivers as well with Claypool and Deontay and Harris and Fairmouth. Like, they've got players. They don't have the quarterback that I truly believe in. Even though I love Trubisky, like, I like the guy a lot. I hope he does well. I just don't think he's going to be a franchise quarterback. And I still have massive question marks about their offensive scheme. Massive question marks about some of the depth defensively, and the offensive line still, but they're going to be competitive, and they're going to be a team that fights, and they're going to be a team that is never an easy win. And that's what I know about the Steelers for sure this year. The New England Patriots I see as the same sort of team. The Patriots, my football team, of course, I don't see them as a team that's going to make the playoffs. I've almost erased that from my thought. The only way, in my opinion, that the Patriots make the playoffs is if Mac Jones just goes insane this year. Like, if Mac Jones goes from, in my opinion, like the 14th best quarterback to being like a borderline top 10, like a top 10 guy, which is possible, that is the only way that this team makes the playoffs. I think that their offensive line has gotten worse. Obviously, Shaq Mason is gone. I'm not sure what they're doing with right tackle and Trent Brown. Like, I like David Andrews. I love David Andrews. He's great. I love some of their defensive pieces. Like, I think their safety trio is arguably the best in the NFL. Like, with Adrian Phillips, Devin McCourty, and Kyle Duggar. And I really like what Christian Barmore can become. I really like Matthew Judon. I like some of their players as role players, like Dietrich Wise and Lawrence Guy, but I don't think they have enough elite talent on this football team. I think Kendrick Bourne is a nice receiver. I think Jacoby Myers is a nice football player. I think Damian Harris, as much as he's graded as this Pro Football Focus phenom, he's a nice football player. Is he a great football player? No. I like Stevenson quite a bit. I like Hunter Henry, but they just don't have a lot of elite players. They don't have an elite corner. They don't really have an elite linebacker. They don't have an elite interior defensive lineman, although Barmore could be one. They don't have an elite offensive lineman anymore. They don't have an elite tight end. They don't have an elite receiver. They don't have an elite running back. So unless Mac Jones becomes elite, then maybe they can make the playoffs, because they've got a lot of nice, solid, good, and that's the way I see them. They've got good coaching, but even the coaching staff has taken a significant hit. I mean, McDaniels isn't there anymore, and the defensive staff last year was highly questionable by the end of the season. So while I think New England is still going to be competitive and they're still going to give teams trouble, they're just not talented enough right now to be considered anywhere close to a playoff team, in my opinion. So that's why I've got New England at below average. I'll order them, coming up soon. They still, if they hit the draft out of the park, then we'll rediscuss that. But the Cincinnati Bengals, are next up. The Cincinnati Bengals are a favorite. The reason I have the Cincinnati Bengals as a favorite is because they have Joe Burrow, who's a top 10 quarterback without a doubt. I don't think he's top 5. Some people might put him there. I don't think he's top 5. Their receiving core is arguably the best in the NFL. Their offensive line is the biggest reason I put them as a favorite because they have improved it greatly. Last year, they made the Super Bowl with a bad, objectively bad offensive line. This year, massive improvement from left to right. They get Collins from Dallas, who's a good right tackle. He's not elite, but he's good, very good. They have Jonah Williams at left tackle, so that's a good tackle duo. Interior line, Ted Karras is extremely reliable and a good football player. At guard or center, he's expected to play center. Guard, Alex Kappa, solid football player. That is a much, much better offensive line with 3 new additions. Joe Mixon is the most underrated running back in the NFL, still, for some reason. Defensively, their defensive line is very, very underrated. And that's the thing that I learned from their playoffs this year, is Trey Hendrickson is legitimately elite. Sam Hubbard is extremely underappreciated. DJ Reader is a beast of a run defender. BJ Hill is a good football player. Like, their defensive line, their starting 4 at the very least, is very nice. Their linebackers, Logan Wilson, had a heck of a Super Bowl. He is a good football player. They need to look at the depth of that position. Secondary is good, not great. I think Jesse Bates is great. I think everyone else is good or average. Mike Hilton is good. Von Bell is good. Chidobe Awuzie is good, but not great. So they could use another corner maybe in the draft, or maybe in free agency. But I think that they're just really good because they've got an awesome quarterback. They've got swagger. Now, they do have expectations this year. Which might hurt them. But I do think that the Bengals, because of their offense, because of their skill positions, because of things that I deem to be important, are favorites. More so than things that I deem to be important about the Ravens, right? But the Ravens and the Bengals are very, very, very close. I don't think there's too much separating them there. The Raiders, this is going to be my team that I root on the most outside of New England and Tampa Bay. And probably this year, to be honest with you, Tampa Bay and then New England if this is Tom's last year. But the Raiders are my third team this year. I'm going to declare it. Josh McDaniels is my guy. I think the most underrated or under-talked about hire this offseason was Josh McDaniels. Like, Josh McDaniels is one of the greatest offensive coaches in NFL history. He was hired by the Las Vegas Raiders, guys. I love what they've done in the offseason. Derek Carr is a very good quarterback. I would argue he's very close to top 10 territory. He has consistently gotten more out of this football team over the past 2 years than ever given credit for. I mean, look at the teams that he's brought to these winning records and these pretty darn good records. Like, that is good stuff from Derek Carr with not very good teams. Their running game, I think, is going to be better because I think McDaniels will improve it from a schematic perspective. Jacobs, Drake, Bolden, Abdullah, they've got some depth there. I like it. Jacobs is going to be a better player with this system. Darren Waller is going to be a better player than he was last year. Hunter Renfrow is awesome. He's going to benefit from this system, as you've seen a lot of white receivers benefit from this system. Devontae Adams is a arguable best receiver in the NFL. Bryan Edwards is good and getting better. They have an awesome offense from a skill standpoint and from a scheme standpoint. Now, their offensive line needs some work. We'll see where they go with that. The pass protection could definitely use, like right tackle would be the biggest area that they try to upgrade. Defensively, different scheme. Gus Bradley to more of a Patriot type scheme with the former DC of the Giants, who I've always liked a lot. Initially, started his career with New England, so there's some familiarity there with McDaniels. But Chandler Jones and Max Crosby is nuts. That's nuts. I like some of the additions they've made, both in the front and the back. I think Bilal Nichols was nice. I think Anthony Everett was nice. I love him as a cornerback. Rocky Sin, I think, solid. And I think that nickel corner, the rookie last year, is pretty good. And Morig's pretty good. So they've got an underrated pieces to their secondary, although they need an elite player, I feel, to put them over the top. And linebackers, they're okay, but at least they're athletic. I think their defense will be about the same as it was last year, maybe a little bit better. I think the Raiders are maybe a playoff team. Here's the thing. I think that they are going... Okay, this is tough. The Raiders, I'm going to put them in playoffs, and then I'm going to sort it out, okay? Because I realize I have 8 teams in the playoffs and the favorites. This is why I did this video for the AFC. We have a couple teams left. Okay, Jacksonville. Nate Hobbs, thank you. Jacksonville. Jacksonville is going to be... See, this is the tough thing. I think that they are much better than they were last year, but they're still a far ways away. So while I don't think they're anywhere close to as bad as the Texans, I have to put them on the worst category because I think that Jacksonville is like way more talented than last year, just from the additions they've made. And I think Doug Peterson is a way better coach than Urban Meyer. And I do think Trevor Lawrence will improve. And I do think their defense will improve. So I think they're closer to below average than they are the Texans. There almost needs to be another category. But they kind of are in that category still. Because they need to prove it to me because they're the Jacksonville Jags. And I apologize to any Jags fans out there. All 4 of you. So they're like a little bit better than the worst, if that makes sense. The Jets are also in the worst. But I've said this like numerous times throughout the offseason. I think the Jets are sneaky competitive. And that's the tough thing. The AFC is loaded, guys. I legitimately think there is one bad team in this whole conference. One bad team. I think the Jets are competitive. I think the Jets, Zach Wilson's going to get better. Here, this is what I'm going to do. Can I make another tier? Is there a way I can make another tier? I don't know. I don't know if I can. Can I? What is this? Okay, here we go. Here we go. This is how I'm going to do it, guys. There we go. We've got a Texans tier now. A Texans tier. Okay, so I like what the Jets have done. I think their offensive line is going to be sneaky one of the best ones in the NFL. I think that their defense is good, especially up front. I think their defensive line is awesome. Their linebackers are pretty good. I think their secondary's gotten better, but it's not great. And their receiving core and their offense, I mean, their weapons could kind of leave something to be desired, but they're not bad. I mean, they're kind of on the same level as New England sort of thing. So I put it like this. I'm going to go from top to bottom and order them from the worst to the best, okay? The Jets are going to be ahead of the Jags. Okay? So we've got Texans last, Jags second last, Jets third last. Steelers and Patriots. I'm going to put the Patriots above the Steelers only because of Mac Jones being better than Mitch Trubisky. And then we've got in the hunt, Browns, Dolphins, Colts. I'm going to put the Browns first. I'm going to put the Colts second, and then the Dolphins. Okay? Playoffs. I think the division of the AFC South being what it is definitely helps the Colts odds, but I also like Frank Reich as a reliable coach as opposed to Mike McDaniel being a new coach. Like I said, I don't know what to expect there, and then I do think Tua, I'm just not a huge fan. Raiders, so who do I move out of the playoffs? So obviously I have to keep the Titans in the playoffs because I have to have an AFC South team. And I'm not moving the Ravens. The Ravens are going to be the top of the top. So I've got to put the Titans here, right? Just because. Even though I don't think they're better necessarily than the Broncos and the Raiders, I've got to put them there. Okay? So it's between the Raiders and the Broncos for who I eliminate from the playoffs. And I very well think this is going to be the case for this season. Like, if I was actually ordering it, I'd have the Titans here. Like, if I really was going to order it. And I'd probably have the Browns, like, here, right? But, so, I'm going to go... Usually teams that make it, there's a certain amount of teams that make it and that miss, right? I'm going to go with the Raiders. The reason I'm going to go with the Raiders in the playoffs, I like their receivers more. I like their coaches more. And I'm not sure how much better the Broncos defense is than the Raiders at this point in time because of Fangio leaving. I think that's a big deal. So I'm going to go with the Raiders in the playoffs, and the Broncos are going to move to in the hunt, and that's the way it's going to be. That's the bottom line, because Mitch said so, all right? So, if you enjoyed, that is the order. I am not changing it, and that is my exact order for the favorites. The Bills, the Chargers, the Chiefs, and then the Bengals as well. That is my tiers for the AFC. Bills first, Chargers second, Chiefs third, Bengals fourth. That's the favorites. Playoffs, Ravens, Titans, Raiders. In the hunt, Broncos, Browns, Colts, Fins. Below average, my Patriots. Buses, Steelers. The worst, the Jets, the Jags, and then the Texans are in the Texans tier. Those are my tiers. Let me switch this. Appreciate everybody that tuned in. Remember, guys, 100 likes, 100 of these Gronk spikes will get you the NFC tier ranking. So make sure that you do Gronk spike the like button. Appreciate everybody joining in live and all the comments. Awesome. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Also, if you want to see any particular videos from me, don't be afraid to recommend some videos and some ideas in the comment section below. I'll definitely check that out, and leave your thoughts in the comment section below if you were not able to catch this live. Appreciate it, and we will be back. Lenny, thank you for the super chat.